before we went to break here, we were telling you about this massive hack of Social Security numbers. We've got the details for you right now on Fox35Orlando.com. So this was a hacker group that claims to have stolen 2.7 billion records of personal information from Americans. This data stolen from a platform that provides information to employers, private investigators, staffing agencies, and other background checks. And the concerning thing here is that every American Social Security number and address may have been stolen in this. So here to talk with us about this is Matt Rose, CXO of We Prevent Tech Rage, joining us via Zoom. And Matt, thanks for being here on Fox Orlando Live to put this in context for us. Matt, what is your reaction to hearing about this?
So, unfortunately, it's not terribly surprising. With the world we live in today, there's been so many different hacks that have happened when it comes to data like this. I remember back in 2017, even Equifax had a massive data breach, and I think at the time, like 149 million American Social Security numbers were taken. So it's unfortunately expected, and I think a lot of times, I think myself as a professional in the field, I feel like it almost becomes a little more it's kind of gotten to the point where I expect it to happen, and we just hope we have the controls in place so that it's not as bad as it could be.
Yeah, because here we are talking about Social Security numbers and addresses. I mean, this is, when it comes to personal information like this that would be hacked from these places. I mean, that's about as sensitive as these things can get. Your Social Security number is something that you do everything you can to protect.
Yeah, and unfortunately, because of the different breaches that have happened over the years, it's probably likely that everyone's parts of their data has already been out there. And I think that's why when these things happen, people tell you to make sure you have credit monitoring as a first, because you really won't know, because unless you're buying this data that's out there, you really can't look through to see if your data was out there. And there's a few ways you can do it, but until you potentially have a hit on your data, you really don't know. And that's the thing. There's these numbers and the amount of data and the amount of people who could have been affected with this. I remember when the Equifax happened in 2017, there was math done that for the hackers to actually try to use all of those, it would have taken some ridiculous amount of time, because it's the sheer amount of data. So it sounds scary, it should be scary, but it's also that it's not to say that it's been used already or would be used tomorrow or the next day.
Now, from the perspective of this national public data, where this data was stolen from, this platform, how could something like this happen? Because they have so many people's very sensitive data. I think the question people may be wondering is, how can they let something like this happen?
Unfortunately, that's where you really have to look back to. And the likelihood of how this happened is really the way most kind of attacks and incidents happen, is there was likely a phishing attack or some sort of vulnerability that was exploited by these attackers. And as much as you would hope that they are, protecting themselves to whatever compliance laws they are supposed to, there's still going to be an in. Someone still in that company is accessing this data in order to utilize it. And if they clicked on a bad phishing link or, in an email that looked like something, or if there was a vulnerability in their systems that someone was able to get to, this is what attackers look for. Attackers look to get in via whatever way they can, and they're looking for Social Security numbers, credit card numbers, just any sort of important data. So more than likely, this was, gotten via any of the standard attacks we always hear of.
The other thing that I think is concerning is that we're kind of just hearing about this, and this happened several months ago.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's probably, again, it's concerning. I also don't know what, there likely was some reporting that went on. It just didn't get out to the public, and they probably didn't know, because sometimes to just figure out what happened can take a long time for a company that was breached in any way to really go through the process. It would have been nice if we had heard about it sooner instead of the attackers coming out and telling us. And I think that's probably the most concerning part, is there was no, as much as the public relations, obviously there's already going to be lawsuits against this company, but there really needs to be telling the public when there's any level of a potential breach. And I know there's certain industries SEC type things are working on laws that they require public companies to disclose, even if we don't know where it goes to. But it really makes you think that, disclosure, as much as it could look bad, sooner could have protected a lot of this. We could have already been looking out for it. People could have already been trying to protect themselves if they weren't already. So unfortunately, that is sad that it took months to come out.
So what now?
So again, I would caution to say, as much as I don't want to minimize it, there's a good chance a lot of people's data was already out there. I would think everyone should have some sort of credit monitoring service. And I think first off, there's so many breaches of large companies that have data like this. I feel like everyone has free subscriptions for life, it seems like. So at minimum, setting those up. I mean, even just in our own family, a week or two ago, we got a ping on something was used, and it ended up being that my wife was on a credit card with a family member, and it was totally good, but we got a ping on it and we were like, that's weird. So those kind of things will alert you as to if someone is trying to do anything with your credit. Standard cybersecurity practices of being careful what you click on, having good password, protections are always good to have. And there are many services out there that can scan the dark web. It's a little more useful from a technology standpoint. We actually have to do that for our clients. But in that sense, you also, even as a consumer, would know if all of a sudden your name, your email address was found on the dark web. And at least that's a really obvious warning that it might be imminent where someone's going to try to use something. So there's a few things you can do to protect yourself, but it's really at this point almost notification and trying to get ahead of things beforehand. And funny enough, I was just having a conversation with somebody. The thing I think everyone gets concerned about now is if you have children that are under the age of 18 and wondering if their social security numbers are out there. And so I would even think to try to monitor those social security numbers too, as sad as that can be to say.
Yeah. That's the world we live in now. So, Matt Rose, CXO of We Prevent Tech Rage, thank you so much for joining us here on Fox Orlando Live.
All right. Thanks for having me.